welcome back to my channel. Today, we're going to be talking about a new VOD release, Spontaneous. Before we begin, let me know in the comments if you were looking forward to this or what your thoughts were if you've seen it already, and make sure to give this a thumbs up if you like these reviews. It helps me out immensely if you do that. Also, if you're new here and you like movies, whether it be blockbusters, hidden gems, and everything in between, please consider hitting that subscribe button so you can stay up to date with reviews of new releases and some classics. But now, let's jump right into it. This film stars Katherine Langford as Mara, a high schooler who meets the boy of her dreams named Dylan, played by Charlie Plummer, and while their relationship is great, they meet in the midst of a pandemic where all the students in their school are inexplicably spontaneously combusting. As the couple realize that tomorrow is no longer promised, their romance blossoms as they live each moment like it's their last. Literally. This is based on a novel of the same name, and it's written and directed by Brian Duffield, making his directorial debut. He previously wrote Underwater from earlier this year, as well as the first Babysitter movie for Netflix, which I absolutely love. It's a genre-heavy, bloody comedy, which is something it has in common with this movie. The where they differ is that The Babysitter is a horror comedy, and this is a sci-fi comedy. But it has a very absurd premise, and it fully commits to the idea. We have numerous scenes of characters having a normal conversation, or in the middle of doing something, and mid-sentence will just explode, and the entire room is covered in blood. And this isn't something that's seen sparingly, but constantly throughout the movie. And it comes off as a little over the top, but what I really appreciate about this is the fact that it never plays the spontaneous combustion itself as a joke. Considering Duffield wrote The Babysitter, where characters are gruesomely killed in cartoonish fashion, I was fully expecting something similar here. But while it's a very funny movie, it treats each of these combustions as a fairly serious moment, and it treats the deceased characters with respect. There's a reoccurring image used where after one of the students dies, it'll cut to a very brief flashback of them taking their picture for the school yearbook, and they'll get memorialized. I honestly wasn't expecting that, and I found it to just be sweet. In fact, the film itself can take on a very sweet tone in general, especially as it focuses on this blossoming romance while all this chaos is going on. The film has at its center a young adult romance that takes itself seriously at times and pits it against the backdrop of this ridiculous premise. And in the wrong hands, there could have been a ton of issues regarding the tone. And sometimes, yeah, it can feel a little too cheesy. There are a few scenes here and there where characters are just having a nice moment and it comes off as a bit too sentimental, and it may linger on those moments for a little too long. But the fact this only happened once in a while and not every other scene goes to show that Duffield really knows his stuff. For the most part, he strikes the right balance. While the concept of spontaneous combustion is over the top, it's actually used to center on the film's themes, talking about how life is very fragile and you should live it up while you can and find meaning in it. While we do see a lot of scenes of characters dying, in addition to them being memorialized respectfully, they also add to Mara and Dylan's story. These deaths fuel them to want to do more together and not only appreciate their time with each other, but find their place in the world. And I gotta say, the chemistry between Katherine Langford and Charlie Plummer is excellent. Part of the story involves how they fall in love pretty quickly, Romeo and Juliet style, but the way it's handled, I found them to be totally believable together. They're both charismatic and energetic, and just kept the film moving very quickly. Plummer is the more timid of the two, while Langford is the livelier one, but they played off each other so well, and were just a joy to watch, especially Langford. She was incredible here, mainly for her sense of comedic timing. A lot of the humor here is actually dialogue based, and a lot of it also stems from the film's themes of how life is fragile and you should live it up to the fullest. Characters know the seriousness of their situation, fully understand it, and know they just need to have fun while they can, and from there, a lot of morbid jokes are made. Like within the first 10 minutes, some characters joke about a funeral, and I found myself just going, wow. But it never does any of this in a mean-spirited sort of way. It never punches down, and many of the jokes will be characters goofing around with one another, and they'll even be self-deprecating. It's an extremely engaging movie because of just how well written these characters are, and how they have such clear-cut desires that they're actively working towards. And the performances just make them a blast to watch, no pun intended. But what I also loved is throughout the movie, there's also this sense of tension that keeps you hooked in. Since it revolves around spontaneous combustion, you never know when the scene's going to suddenly be interrupted by another death. And because you spend so much time with not just Langford and Plummer, but with a lot of their classmates, and you get to know them, and they're often quite funny, you get invested in all of them. And then that dread starts to hover over the movie, as you get worried that one of your favorite characters might go at any moment. And the way Duffield captures that was just brilliant. The only other criticism that I had, besides feeling a little too sappy in some areas, was the fact that the third act might be the weakest part of the movie. I didn't dislike it by any means. There are still some really solid moments, especially the ending, but without spoiling why, parts of it felt a little aimless. And I get why it did that, but because there were a few times where it lacked that snappy energy that kept most of the film moving so quickly, it just wasn't as engaging. But in the end, it's a small criticism. I highly recommend checking this one out. It's not only a very sweet movie, but very funny as well. It does a great job of mixing sci-fi with romantic comedy and rarely comes off as jarring in tone. And it has two fantastic lead performances from Katherine Langford and Charlie Plummer, who are just wonderful to see together. I really hope Brian Duffield goes on to direct more movies because this is a great debut. It's on VOD, so definitely check this out when you can. Spontaneous gets an 8 out of 10. So let me know, did you see Spontaneous or are you planning to see it, and what were your thoughts? Did you find it funny? Did you enjoy the performances? And what's a fun movie you've seen lately? Let me know in the comments below. If you enjoyed this video, please like it and share it, and for more movie reviews and film discussion, please make sure to hit that subscribe button to stay updated. Thanks for watching, everyone. I'll catch you next time.